Right, so if you've been waiting for new M4 MacBooks, I come bearing great news because we have leaks of a box. Yes, we have leaks of an actual box, but anyways, this box does actually confirm a few things about these upcoming MacBooks. So this is clearly a box for the base MacBook Pro, and as you can see, it's going to feature the M4 chipset, who'd have figured? But more excitingly, we can see 16 gigs of RAM being mentioned. Now, of course, there is no confirmation this is the base model being shown, but typically it's the base configurations Apple makes in bulk at launch, and so this could be confirmation that M4 models now start with 16 gigs of RAM, which would be a massive relief, guys. We've wanted a RAM upgrade on the base Macs forever, and so 16 gigs of RAM by itself is going to make the M4 models much better value than the outgoing models. Now, as one expects, the M4 has a 10-core CPU and a 10-core GPU, and as for other specs on the box, it's basically the same as the M3 model, and that also applies to the actual wallpaper because yes, Apple's being hella lazy and they're reusing the same exact wallpaper again. Now, I know some of you guys might be saying, oh, Apple would never do that, but no, they have. The M3 MacBook Airs reuse the same wallpapers from the M2, and the M2 MacBook Pro boxes reuse the same wallpapers from the M1, even though in the marketing the M2 MacBook Pros got new wallpapers. So basically, Apple's trying to save money on these boxes. Now, I'm still hoping we see actual new wallpapers in the marketing material because it's kinda lazy to just reuse the same wallpapers. At the very least, with the spec refreshes, they should give us a fancy new wallpaper, but anyways, it's just a wallpaper to be fair. So yeah, overall guys, as one expects, this will be a minor spec refresh, but if we do get 16 gigs of RAM as standards, that's gonna be big news. Anyways, that's not the only evidence we have regarding new MacBooks on the way, because Ross Young also shared some details. According to display guru Ross Young, display panels destined for the 14-inch and 16-inch M4 MacBook Pro models are shipping to Apple this month, which of course does heavily suggest they could be launching in the final quarter of the year, like Gurman recently told us, so expect another Mac-focused October event. Now, if you're wondering why Apple's assembling these MacBooks so early, it's really because they're stockpiling these before launch. There's going to be tons of you guys buying these, and so of course they want to have the right amount of these before they're announced officially. Now, what Ross Young tells us is awesome news because Gurman was kinda unsure as to which MacBook Pro was going to release. Initially, he said only the base model would release, and the higher-end 14 and 16-inch may release later, but no. Ross Young clearly says display panels for the 16-inch as well are shipping this month, so yes, expect all models to be released all at once. And I feel vindicated, guys, because I've been saying forever that this makes the most sense. Why Apple would only update the base model and then leave the higher-end models that are more expensive with last year's chipsets would be very confusing, because clearly you should pay more and get worse features. Yay! Jokes aside, expect Apple to do the same thing they did last year. So it's going to be a simple chip refresh. We might not even get a new color this year, but slightly faster chipsets are appreciated nevertheless. You know what else would be appreciated? Subscribing to the channel, of course. It would bring you the latest about Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Now, what kind of upgrades can we expect with the M4? Well, thankfully, we don't have to speculate because the 2024 iPad Pros already feature the M4. Now, the base models do have a binned M4, but don't expect that to come to the MacBook Pros. The base model got the full fat M3, so expect this to get the full fat M4. And while the M4 has a 10-core CPU that has 4 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores, it's based upon a second generation 3nm process that's much more efficient to produce, and the chip also features a new display engine, dynamic caching that helps significantly increase performance for demanding pro apps and games, and more importantly includes a new neural engine that fuels accelerated AI workloads. And that last point will be the main upgrade Apple's going to flex in the marketing, because remember, the big thing at Apple right now is Apple Intelligence. Much like they plan to do with the iPhone 16 series, I expect Apple to push the narrative that these Macs are powered by the awesomeness of Apple Intelligence, and you need it in your life immediately, and M4 is the reason you get all this AI goodness. Things do get more interesting when we get into the variants the M4 could come in. Sedonin is the codename for the base M4. Then we have Bravo, which will be the mid-tier chipsets, so I'm assuming that's both the M4 Max and Pro chipsets. And then Hydra is the highest end offering, which is apparently designed for the Mac Pro, suggesting it's the heavily rumored Ultra or Extreme variant we've heard about in the past. That's very intriguing because I remember talking about the M2 Ultra, but that did not materialize. And so as a result, the Mac Pro kind of felt redundant because it was this massive metal box that had so much wasted space inside and was basically a more expensive version of the Mac Studio, whilst not really offering any performance upgrades except slightly better expandability options. And so I'm glad M4 Ultra could be happening, because this could be the game changer for the Mac Pro. Also, I do want to note it's interesting that both the M4 Pro and Max fall under the same code name, because unlike the M1 and M2 variants of these chips, the M3 versions were completely different. Before, they had the same CPU configuration, but it would be the GPU that's different. But now even the M3 Max offers more performance cores over the M3 Pro, and so could the M4 be returning back to the good old days of the M1 and M2 layouts, where the Pro and Max had the same CPUs? Well, that would be nice, considering the M3 Pro in some ways was a weird downgrade over the M2 Pro. Those are the new chips, but let's now talk about the other Macs we should see launch in October alongside the MacBook Pros. First will be the 24-inch iMac, and I'm still surprised we're getting persistent rumors this will be launching with the M4, because Apple took nearly 3 years to update it from M1 to M3, and so going to M4 so soon has caught me off guard a little, I can't lie. I've actually always argued it makes sense to not upgrade the iMac very often, because it's a low volume product and the user base for the machine, schools and families, likely won't care about having a slightly faster chipset. But hey, if it's going to be a simple chip swap and the price stays the same, I guess I'll take it. And also maybe some new snazzy colors with this M4 refresh. Next will be the Mac Mini. So interestingly, this will be skipping M3 altogether, and it's jumping to the M4 and the M4 Pro chipset. And I guess it makes sense of skipping M3 Pro, because as I said, it was a weird upgrade over the M2 Pro. However, unlike the other Macs, this won't just be a chip refresh. Here's a comparison picture of the current and possible new design by TechGod on Twitter, and you can see how radical this redesign is. It's so much smaller. And TechGod also predicts, by the way, that we could see elements of the Mac Studio, which I also think is very likely. I would also like to see a space black or space grey option, like of course they briefly offered with the 2018 Mac Minis. But to be honest, colors don't make a huge difference at the end of the day. It's literally just a metal box that's gonna sit in the corner, so I'm also fine with the current silver. Now in terms of I/O, there will be a HDMI 2.1 ports and 3 Thunderbolt ports on the back, which is actually an upgrade over the current M2 that features 2 Thunderbolt ports, and this is because the M4 features more Thunderbolt controllers. So breaking news, guys, for once Apple's making their product smaller and actually giving us more ports. Wow, who'd have figured? Now funnily enough, this only applies to the M4 model, because if you go for the M4 Pro, that actually has 1 less port compared to the M2 Pro model. But I guess the M4 Pro will have 3 ports to match the MacBook Pros. Now if you're worried if Timothy is going to be jacking up prices because of this redesign, Gurman thankfully says that will not be the case. Yay! So those are the 2024 M4 Macs, but of course, the M4 rollout won't be done this year. So the next model up for release is the MacBook Air. This apparently should stick to a spring release, similar to the M3 model this year. Now much like the MacBook Pro, don't expect this to get any other changes apart from a new chipset. Apple seems to be pretty happy with the current form factors, so I don't see them changing the design anytime soon. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Finally, around mid-2025, we should see the M4 Mac Studio, which makes sense considering the M2 model launched at WWDC, and the Mac Pro then releases in the second half of 2024 according to Gurman, which I'm gonna go against, guys. Yes, I should not argue with the tipster god himself, but personally, I see Apple sticking to the WWDC release schedule, and by the time the second half of 2025 begins, I'm sure there's going to be new M5 machines, so they need to be done with the M4 rollout by the summer in my opinion. Now I do wonder if we're going to get a new design with the M4 Mac Pro. I really hope they do, but because it's a low volume product, you can argue that Apple doesn't want to spend the R&D developing a new shell for the 5 people buying this. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. Right, so Apple has announced the annual September event for the 9th, and whilst we know we can for sure expect brand new shiny iPhones, some of you guys may be wondering if a cheeky new iPad mini could release at this event, and while thankfully for you guys, there is actual evidence we could see this in September, so let's dive right in. Essentially, ever-credible Apple leaker Mr. Mark Gurman tells us supply of the current iPad mini 6 is dwindling